Synopsis. I, Yanfeng Shilang, King of Uruk Introduction. Weigong Shilang, inherits the dream of becoming the heir of the self-defense palace and wants to become a partner of justice. But I'm different. I am the child saved by Yanfeng Qili and Gilgamesh in the Sea of Fire. I am Yanfeng Shiro. I have no intention of becoming a partner of justice. My justice is only on my fist. Yanfeng Shiro, who shuttles between parallel worlds and different worlds, has many different identities. He is the next king of Uruk after Gilgamesh. He is the strongest wizard of fairy tales. He is still a magician, an adventurer, a ruler of heroes, and a dragon. He is the strongest person. This book is a comprehensive collection of astronomy, which has determined the world of Absolute Warcraft Front, Babylonia, Fairy Tale, Blessing for a Better World, and Spell Return. The author has 2 completed works, totaling 3 million words, and promises not to be a eunuch. Please rest assured to consume them. Chapter 1. Yanfeng Shilang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. So, how did things develop to this extent? Backed against the inner side of the women's wall, Yanfeng Shilang gasped and sighed. At this moment, Yanfeng Shilang was wearing armor, with a large bow in his hand and an arrow bag on his back, even leaning against a long spear on the wall beside him. This can be described as fully armed. But such attire was unexpected for Yanfeng Shiro, who was still studying, reading, and following his sister in a civilized society not long ago. Sure enough, curiosity can not only kill cats, but also people. How could I be so unlucky? There are countless parallel worlds in the world of the moon, how could I have traveled to this world? After feeling boundless resentment in his heart, Yanfeng Shiro couldn't help but turn his head and look towards the city wall where he was located. There is an endless and indescribable danger. That's the demon. And here, it is also the Absolute Warcraft Front, Babylonia, which is facing countless Warcraft attacks. That's right, this is the 7th special point located in the world designated by the Crown of Destiny. And he said that Feng Shilang, as an unlucky person with the ability to travel through time, arrived at such a dangerous place on the 2nd time of travel. At this time, he was as a soldier, resisting the endless tide of Warcraft. Dong! 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 The sudden drumbeat woke up Yanfeng Shiro, who was recalling, and under the initial conditioned reflex formed by several days of continuous fighting, he quickly stood up and entered a state of combat. Quickly hitching the arrow onto the long bow and pulling the bowstring full, without much thought, Yanfeng Shilang shot the arrow out. Then take out another arrow and tie it onto the bowstring to continue shooting. As for whether the previous arrow hit, Feng Shilang never wastes extra attention on such matters. For him, the arrow had already hit before it was shot. After all, before this war, he was already a master-level archer, and after experiencing these days of practical and deadly battles, his long stagnant archery began to make rapid progress again. In today's battlefield, he is the strongest archer. Soon, the small-scale attack came to an end. Amidst the respectful gazes of the soldiers around him, Yanfeng Shilang walked straight towards his camp. For Yanfeng Shilang, the soldiers here did not underestimate him because of his youth, after all, his combat achievements are beyond the reach of ordinary people. Moreover, here Yanfeng Shilang has another more prestigious identity. Please, Your Highness. The soldier who was originally standing in front of Yanfeng Shilang quickly retreated and respectfully said, Your Highness. This is a term used to refer to the relatives of monarchs in monarchic countries. In this world, the only current king is the wise King Gilgamesh, who leads Uruk to resist Warcraft. Speaking of Feng Shilang, it is his son. Of course, to be precise, Yanfeng Shiro should be the adopted son of Gilgamesh. As for how this magical relationship came about, then we have to talk about the origin of Yanfeng Shilang. Coming to Uruk is already Yanfeng Shilang's 2nd time traveling. And his first journey, or rather his initial reincarnation, made him one of the righteous companions of the male protagonists in the moon world, Ichiro Omiya. Weigong Shilang, theoretically speaking, should be his identity. But by various coincidences, Weigong Shilang became Yanfeng Shilang. Although reincarnated, Shiro, who had just been reincarnated, had no memories of his past life. After all, his brain had not yet fully developed at that time. In that state, he couldn't bear the memories of his past life at all. But as time passed, the elderly Shilang began to develop a vague sense of familiarity with the many phenomena around him. It seems like everything around me is familiar. For example, the city he lives in is called Dongmu City. For example, his classmate in kindergarten is called Yuansaka Rin. And in the year when he was 7 years old, as his vision grew stronger, he ran out one night only to encounter a terrifying disaster. When he woke up again, ruins were everywhere around him. The flames are burning fiercely. At that moment, he remembered everything. He recalled his past life and understood his current identity. And just as he was praying to be rescued from the crisis of death by the governor of the palace, he heard a joyful laugh. Subsequently, a priest covered in bloodstains and a bare blonde man appeared in front of him. "Oh, is there still breath? You're such a lucky little ghost." The bare man with blonde hair said so. Although the scene was different from what he had imagined, the dying Shiro could only pray for help in a weak voice. "Please. Help. Me." Faced with Shiro's plea for help, the two people in front of him responded. He survived. But correspondingly, he did not become a samurai of the palace, but instead inherited the surname of the priest who saved him, Yanfeng Qili, and became a samurai of Yanfeng. And to save him, the pair of Yanfeng Qili and Gilgamesh, who were supposed to be enemies of the Weigong Shilang in their original trajectory, also became Yanfeng Shilang's adoptive father. Even looking back now, this is truly touching. This adventure is really incredible. Returning to his own camp, Yanfeng Shiro, lying on his bed, raised the corner of his mouth. His experience is really special. However, after years of living together, he has become a true family member with Yanfeng Qili and Gilgamesh. UU reading www.uukangshu.net. Although Yanfeng Shilang always found their personalities very strange, they seem to be developing towards the image of the two in Yanfeng Shilang's memory of the fantasy carnival. But family is family. Both of them cared for him, and Yanfeng Shilang remembered them all in his heart. As for why Yanfeng Shilang appeared here, it is necessary to mention his golden finger. As a traveler, Yanfeng Shiro naturally has his own golden fingers. That is a system panel. This system panel is very simple, it doesn't have any functions such as artificial intelligence or bonus lottery. On a concise panel, there are only two options: the other world and parallel world. After these two options, there is also an energy bar for each. It seems that only when the energy bar is full can he perform the corresponding operation. Of course, all of this was just speculation by Yanfeng Shilang before experiencing it firsthand. After all, he has read countless books in his past life. What kind of protagonist has Golden Finger never seen before? After a series of experiments, it also confirmed Yanfeng Shilang's conjecture that this panel would indeed provide the function of crossing the world when the energy was fully gathered. And the energy required to travel through parallel worlds is only half of that required to travel through different worlds. So Yanfeng Shiro chose to travel through parallel worlds as the experimental object. So he came here. One of the most dangerous parallel worlds in the lunar world, the world designated by the Crown of Destiny. At the same time, it is also the most dangerous special point in the world designated by the Fate Crown, the Absolute Warcraft Front, Babylonia. Chapter 2. Spirits and Servants. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After activating the system panel's ability to traverse parallel worlds, Yanfeng Shiro appeared in a wilderness. Because he had anticipated similar situations before taking action, Yanfeng Shiro had learned how to determine direction in the wilderness without any guidance and many survival skills in the wilderness. However, things like dry food and water were well prepared by Yanfeng Shilang. So he hasn't fallen to the point of surviving in the wilderness yet. But rather than surviving in the wilderness, a more urgent matter is now in front of Yanfeng Shilang, waiting for him to handle. That's how to escape from the mouth of the Warcraft in front of us. Under the vigilance of Yanfeng Shilang, he immediately noticed his situation upon landing. Around him, there are a total of 5 Warcraft. Of course, only 5 Warcraft beasts cannot endanger the safety of Yanfeng Shilang's life. As the adopted son of Yanfeng Qili, Yanfeng Shiro has been practicing the 8 extremes fist since childhood and is proficient in various magic techniques passed down by the Yuansaka family. In addition, he had a prior understanding of his own talents, so he never stopped practicing projection magic and reinforcement magic. Don't look at him, he's only 15 years old now and he's just a junior high school student. He is much stronger now than Rin Kasaka during the 5th Holy Grail War. At this moment, although the 5 Warcraft beasts that appeared in front of him were very powerful, Yanfeng Shilang could completely solve them. What makes him uneasy is why these monsters appear here. Which parallel world is this? Yanfeng Shiro, who had some speculations in his heart, became extremely serious in his expression. He is very worried that his guess will come true. But as he tackled the Warcraft and moved towards a place where there might be people based on the surrounding environment and traces, the white-haired man suddenly appeared in front of him, breaking his illusions. The magician of flowers, Merlin. That face is too familiar to Feng Shilang. Although I am already familiar with your story, you are different from those of you, so when we first met, Shilang, I am Mei Lin Yu. Merlin, who met for the first time, said to Yanfeng Shiro. Subsequently, under his leadership, Yanfeng Shilang went to Uruk and met Gilgamesh, who was handling government affairs, in the Divine Tower. Unlike Gilgamesh, who was familiar to the Yanfeng scholar. At this moment, the person in front of him was more gentle in temperament. Yanfeng Shiro is also very clear about the reasons for these differences. Because heroes have no concept of time, the summoned followers will appear the same person from different eras. The one in the family of Yanfeng Shiro is Gilgamesh, who became a tyrant during his youth. And now the one in front of him is Gilgamesh, who became a wise king in his later years. So their personalities are not the same. Speaking of the Gilgamesh in front of Toyoshiro, he was constantly handling various official duties. From the war on the north side to the birth of a child. All matters will be handled by him alone. This makes him incredibly busy. Official duties come one after another, and if he continues to work like this, Yanfeng Shilang feels that he will eventually die from overwork. And this wise King Gilgamesh's reception with Yanfeng Shiro was also carried out under such circumstances. Although most of the time it was Gilgamesh speaking and Yanfeng Shiro listening. Gilgamesh stated that he already knew the identity of Yanfeng Shiro. Although it was different from him, Yanfeng Shiro agreed with the fact that he was the adopted son of Gilgamesh. Later, under the pretext of exercising, he sent Yanfeng Shiro to the Absolute Warcraft Front located in the north of Uruk, and together with the generals leading here, they guarded the northern wall of the kingdom. And because Gilgamesh never concealed the identity of Yanfeng Shiro. The identity of Yanfeng Shilang quickly spread throughout the entire Uruk. This is also one of the reasons why he is so respected in the military camp. Did you dream about what happened before again? Sitting up from his own bed, recalling the scene from his previous sleep, Yanfeng Shiro couldn't help but sigh. He doesn't really care about it. After all, compared to his previous life, Yanfeng Shilang's experiences in the past few months have been too exciting. No wonder he often dreams about his previous experiences. After a slight adjustment of his psychology, Yanfeng Shilang walked out of the military tent and looked up at the sky. At this moment, night has already descended. The army stationed here on the northern wall has also reached mealtime. Or rather, the vast majority of soldiers have already finished their meals and started resting. So at this moment, the surroundings are so peaceful. After looking around with complex eyes, Yanfeng Shiro walked towards the central tent. That is the command post of the entire northern wall. Unlike the quiet environment around, the sound in the big tent can be heard even from outside. That is the voice of a man and a woman discussing military affairs. Sorry, I'm late. Entering the large tent, Yanfeng Shiro greeted the two in a soft voice. Good evening, Teacher Leonida, Teacher Bayuqian. Leonidas and Bayuqian. These two people are the commanders of the entire northern wall. Unlike ordinary soldiers, they are not humans, but heroes. The so-called heroic spirit refers to the existence of heroes whose great achievements are left as legends after death and have become objects of faith. Reading www.uukangshu.net. Usually, heroes are summoned by the world as a force to protect humanity. And what humanity summons is also the follower. So at this time, Leonidas and Bayuqian were followers. The existence of followers is also one of the characteristics of the moon world. The story of the world designated by the crown of fate is the story of the last emperor of humanity and the heroes working together to save the world. For this, they need to correct the 7 outliers in history. As for the world where Feng Shiro is currently located, it is the 7th and most dangerous special point. Because here, the enemy to face is the goddess. The 3 goddesses alliance, this is the enemy that Uruk needs to face at this time. At this time, the Absolute Warcraft Front where Yanfeng Shiro is located is resisting the Warcraft goddess in the 3 goddesses alliance. She used the power of the goddess to constantly create Warcraft, intending to use it to eliminate all humans on the ground. It is precisely because of foreseeing such a calamity. As a wise king, Gilgamesh launched the technique of summoning the spirit, first summoning Merlin, and then summoning 7 followers in one breath. By relying on these followers, Gilgamesh integrated all the forces of this era. This is why humanity in this world has persisted to this day. Otherwise, the humanity of this world would have been completely destroyed long ago. And because there were as many as 3 goddesses to face, along with Merlin, a total of 8 followers were also carrying out various tasks under the dispatch of Gilgamesh. It is precisely these 8 followers, Bayuqian and Leonidas, who are stationed here on the northern wall to resist the continuous flow of monsters. Chapter 3. The Crisis Approaching in the Dark. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ha ha ha. You didn't come late, or rather you came at the right time. Seeing Yanfeng Shiro walking in, Leonidas was staring at Leonidas on the sand table in the center of the camp, laughing and walking towards Yanfeng Shiro, then continuously patting his shoulder. That's right, we happen to have something to discuss with you. Bayuqian on the side also chuckled and said. However, you have just woken up and should be hungry. I have already prepared the food for you. You can listen to us while you eat. From the side desk, he brought the insulated food to Yanfeng Shiro's eyes, and Bayuqian smiled gently. Thank you, Teacher Bayuqian. As a comrade who had been fighting together for a long time, Yanfeng Shilang also took the food from Bayuqian's hand without hesitation and began to stuff it into his mouth. The former Yanfeng Shilang was not familiar with the existence of Bayuqian, a heroic spirit. Although Yanfeng Shiro has seen many works from the Type Moon series in his past life. But for Bayuqian, who had played in the Absolute Warcraft Front before, he had no idea in his past life. Because in the original work, she had already died before the protagonist appeared. And Yanfeng Shiro's understanding of this chapter in the original work is also through anime, rather than the game itself. In the anime, there was no mention of her and the other 2 deceased spirits summoned by Gilgamesh. But because he came very early this time, Bayuqian had not yet died. This gave Yanfeng Shilang an additional teacher to teach him. Yanfeng Shilang is very weak. Although he is now the adopted son of the 2 big bosses in his original trajectory, there is not much that those 2 can impart to Yanfeng Shilang. This is determined by the historical environment. Although at this time, Yanfeng Shiro was much stronger than the young girl of the same age who was a genius magician, Rin Hosoka, his strength was meaningless due to the different times. This is the special point. It's the divine generation. It is an era where gods still exist. And their enemies are also gods. In the face of such enemies, Yanfeng Shiro is undoubtedly just an ant. Fortunately, what he needs to face now is not the gods, but the monsters created by the gods to eliminate humanity. Even so, Yanfeng Shilang still needs to grow. And here on the northern wall, it is the most suitable place for Yanfeng Shilang to grow up. After all, there are endless monsters here. There is an endless battle. During this period, Yanfeng Shiro followed Leonidas and Ba Yuqian to continuously learn their skills and combat concepts. Especially the technique of killing enemies. This is the field that he once lacked. Under the guidance of the two and the endless combat experience, Yanfeng Shilang at this time has gained a lot of growth in both physical and spiritual aspects compared to his former self. Of course, in addition to the skills of combat, Leonidas and Ba Yuqian also taught Yanfeng Shiro some other skills. For example, the technique of unifying troops, as well as the technique of sleeping. The technique taught by Leonidas to Yanfeng Shilang is to take a short rest after a battle to restore one's state of mind. It is precisely because of their wholehearted guidance that Yanfeng Shilang respectfully refers to them as teachers. First of all, the conclusion is that our current situation may be very dangerous. On the edge of the sand table in the center of the tent, Leonidas earnestly spoke to Yanfeng Shilang and Ba Yuqian. At this moment, his voice was filled with caution. Compared to his usual self, this is a completely different person. Actually, I also felt a sense of crisis, but because I have been fighting all along, I did not find the source of the sense of crisis. After swallowing the food in his mouth, Yanfeng Shiro quickly reported his previous feelings during the battle to Leonidas. At the beginning of the battle, Yanfeng Shiro, like other soldiers, charged towards the front line of the battle. But as he continued to tap into his potential, he quickly found his own way of fighting. That's shooting. I have a great talent for archery. As a reincarnation, Yanfeng Shiro is clear about this. So he joined the school's archery department from a young age and quickly became one of its ace. By practicing in this way, Yanfeng Shilang had already reached a state of hitting the target before firing. He can be called 100 shots in shooting like this. As an archer, he can view the entire battlefield and constantly provide support to various dangerous areas. As a result, he saved many soldiers who should have died. This is also one of the reasons why he is so respected. It is precisely because he needs to constantly watch the entire front line that he feels the hidden sense of crisis. I also have the same feeling. Ba Yuqian also said accordingly. Upon hearing their response, Leonidas nodded slightly and then began his explanation. The reason why you two didn't see through the truth is that you are both at the forefront of the front line, even in the center of the enemy, so you just have feelings. But as a commander, I can see very clearly from behind, and the opponent's organization has greatly improved. Here on the northern wall, Leonidas and Ba Yuqian have different positions. Leonidas is a marshal. His task is to train soldiers and organize them to resist the attacks of Warcraft. It is precisely under his command that the soldiers of Uruk can unleash their powerful collaborative combat capabilities to block the Warcraft from this front. Reading www.uukangshu.net. Without a doubt, he is the most important in the entire northern wall. And Ba Yuqian's positioning is as a general. She has a strong fighting ability and always rushes into the enemy's formation when fighting. Although she usually treats people with gentleness, her style in the battlefield can be described as extremely fierce, recklessly ravaging the enemy. Among the 7 servants summoned by Gilgamesh, besides Merlin, she is also one of the best in combat power. Has the organization improved? Do you mean the other party has a commander appearing? During his lifetime, Ba Yuqian, who was also the leader of the army, immediately understood the meaning of Leonidas. Compared to these warcraft, the soldiers of Uruk belong to the weaker side in terms of both quantity and individual strength. And the reason why they have been able to persist until now is not only due to Leonidas' command and the battle in front of Bayou, but more importantly, the other party's lack of true command. Although there are many warcraft, they are just scattered sand. This makes it impossible for them to unleash all their power. If the other party really appears as a commander, the entire northern wall is likely to be in crisis. Once the northern wall falls, the entire Uruk is likely to fall into the brink of destruction. No, this matter must be promptly notified to King Gilgamesh. We need support. Ba Yuqian's tone became urgent. Leonidas also agrees with her viewpoint. So he looked at Yanfeng Shilang. Leave it to me. The Yanfeng Shilang, who quickly understood the meaning of Leonidas, even took on this task. He knew that this trip was necessary for him. Chapter 4. Gem Magic and Servants. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The northern wall is not close to the location of Uruk. If ordinary soldiers walk, it may take a few days. Therefore, here in the northern wall, there are only 3 people who can reach Uruk overnight, namely Leonidas, Ba Yuqian, and Yanfeng Shilang. The first 2, as heroes, naturally possess superhuman speed and stamina. To achieve these, Feng Shilang needs to use magic. Gem magic. This is the strongest magic that Yanfeng Shilang has mastered. However, this magic was not learned by Yanfeng Shiro from Yanfeng Qili. The gem magic is a legacy of the Fairies family. Although Yanfeng Qili was apprenticed by Yoshimasa, he did not learn gemstone magic before Yoshimasa's death. Yanfeng Shiro's gemstone magic was learned from the hands of the heir of the Fairies family, Rin Fairies. After the death of Yoshimasa Yoshimasa became the guardian of Yoshimasa's daughter, Yoshimasa Rin. Therefore, in the beginning, Yoshimasa learned magic with Yoshimasa Rin for a period of time. Later, taking an event as an opportunity, Rin Osaka opened the library of the Osaka family, allowing Shiro Yanfeng to learn freely inside. It was also at that time that Yanfeng Shilang learned this technique, and became one of the strongest means of Yanfeng Shilang in this era. The so-called gemstone magic is a special magic technique that stores magic in the gemstone beforehand and is instantly activated during use. From the perspective of Yanfeng Shiro, this magic is somewhat like a magic scroll in the fantasy magic world. In short, when a normal magician performs magic, regardless of how much magic is inside their body, their instantaneous output of magic is fixed. So the more powerful the magic, the longer it takes. In addition to some other requirements, the overly powerful magic cannot be released in fierce battles. But gemstone magic can go against this common sense. Just store magic in the gemstone in advance. As long as there is enough magic stored in the gemstone during battles, even tedious magic can be released in an instant. Therefore, gemstone magic requires high financial resources from its users. After all, the more excellent a gemstone is, the more magic it can store and the greater its power it can exert. And these gemstones are all disposable items. Without deep financial resources, it is impossible to sustain the consumption of this magic. Like Yanfeng Shiro, although he has learned gem magic before, he has hardly practiced it. After all, gemstones are such precious things. But that was before. But now Yanfeng Shilang is no longer in the same predicament as before. Because this is the divine realm, precious gemstones in his era may have a higher value than stones in this era. And Gilgamesh collected all the treasures of the world into his treasury to resist the 3 goddesses. There are countless treasures like gemstones in Gilgamesh's treasury. Before leaving Uruk, Yanfeng Shilang took a large bag of extremely poor quality stones with him for practice. Although none of these are inferior to the precious gemstones that Yanfeng Shiro saw in the distant Sakaki Rin family. Under the training of these gemstones, Yanfeng Shiro's gem magic skills have greatly improved. So much so that in a very short period of time, gem magic became one of Yanfeng Shiro's trumps. Relying on the magic stored in the gemstones, Yanfeng Shiro quickly traversed through wilderness and returned to Uruk before the sun rose. In Uruk, Yanfeng Shiro did not encounter any obstacles and soon saw Gilgamesh again, telling him about the situation on the northern wall. "Have you come to this step yet?" Gilgamesh murmured to himself. He was naturally mentally prepared for such a situation. However, Gilgamesh did not directly respond, but instead looked to his side. "Merlin, what do you think?" Gilgamesh asked Merlin about it. So, the gaze in the hall turned to Merlin one after another. Yanfeng Shiro is no exception. At this moment, in this hall, in addition to Gilgamesh and Yanfeng Shilang, several other followers Mei Lin, Nyuoamaru, and Musashi Fong Benking were also present. According to the information that Yanfeng Shiro received from Merlin, after summoning him, Gilgamesh summoned 7 more followers. They are Leonidas, Bayukian, Nyurowan, Musashi Fong Benking, Tianchao Shiro, Fanhua Kotaro, and Ibaraki Boy. Among them, the Ibaraki Boy did not follow Gilgamesh's command and chose to escape. And the other 6 followers all chose to play for Gilgamesh. So, according to the situation, Gilgamesh also divided them into 3 groups. Among them, Leonidas and Bayuqian resisted the warcraft created by the goddess of warcraft on the north wall. Nyuoamaru and Musashi Fong Benking are clearing out dangerous entities around Uruk, while the guardians are wary of the attack of the goddess of heaven, Ishtar. Meanwhile, Tian Chao Si Lang and Feng Mo Xiao Taro went to the southern dense forest to investigate the situation of the dense forest goddess. However, after entering the dense forest for investigation, Tian Chao Si Lang and Wind Devil Little Taro never came back. So there are only 5 followers left in Uruk today. According to Yanfeng Shiro's memory, before the protagonist of the story, Chaldea, Bayuqian should also have died. And the opportunity is probably this event. Yanfeng Shilang secretly speculated. There's nothing to hesitate about, we have no choice but to go for support. After all, once the northern wall is breached, the front line of zhaozuiyuan.com may be pushed directly outside the royal city, and we won't be able to handle it so easily anymore. Merlin responded seriously. Since you all understand, don't slack off for me. There have been quite a few reports about you recently, especially the witches. Give me a good job. Stupid. Gilgamesh shouted loudly. He is extremely dissatisfied with Merlin's behavior. Although Merlin is also working hard in his way, when he is dealing with documents every day and has no rest, how could this family be teasing the little girl? Who the hell is the boss? Yes, I understand. Feeling Gilgamesh's anger, Merlin quickly apologized with a smile. A hero does not suffer immediate losses. At that moment, Merlin didn't care about her face at all. Moreover, now is indeed the time for him to work. Seeing Merlin not shirking, Gilgamesh nodded in satisfaction. Then he looked towards Nyuoamaru and Musashi Fong Benking. You two should set off immediately and quickly go to the front line to support Leonidas and Bayuqian. Yes. The 2 people who had been waiting for Gilgamesh's command quickly walked out after receiving the command, and then disappeared in the eyes of everyone in an instant. So the task for both of them is entrusted to you. Ah. Okay. Merlin accepted Gilgamesh's command in frustration. Seeing that the matter was arranged properly, a hint of relief appeared at the corner of Gilgamesh's mouth. Then he looked at Yanfeng Shilang and said with satisfaction, You did a good job, Shilang. The message was conveyed very promptly. Chapter 5. Goal, Another World. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Yanfeng Shilang emerged from the divine tower, it happened to be the time of sunrise. Watching the whole world gradually shift from darkness to light, Yanfeng Shi couldn't help but stop here and appreciate this rare scene. How about it? It's very beautiful, isn't it? Watching the sunrise from the divine tower, Shilang, this should be your first time. First, Feng Shilang stepped out and waited for his Merlin to ask with a smile. This is indeed the first time. Yanfeng Shilang nodded slightly. Although due to martial arts practice, Yanfeng Shilang often wakes up early. But watching the sunrise quietly like this, he really rarely does it, let alone in places like the God Tower. Yanfeng Shilang's mornings have always been busy. Apart from martial arts exercises like the 8 Extremes Fist, he has never fallen behind in magic training. Although due to his reincarnation, Yanfeng Shiro has a significant difference in personality compared to Weigong Shiro, this diligence and hard work are a combination of both. For Yanfeng Shiro, who understands the dangers of the moon world, he naturally desires power. It is precisely this desire that drives him to constantly strive. Although his adoptive father Jin Shanshan always says that he is not as likable as he was when he was a child, he will not dislike hardworking people. He hates those who have no will and waste their lives. Upon hearing Yanfeng Shiro's answer, Merlin smiled slightly. He still has a good impression of Yanfeng Shilang. Although this scholar Lang is not that scholar Lang. But love my house and love my dog. Although they have different experiences, they are still the same person. In addition, when Yanfeng Shilang was on the north wall, he often wrote letters to him asking for some knowledge about magic, which made their relationship even closer. Surprisingly, it came out so quickly. I thought you would talk to that Wang duo. After all, it was my suggestion earlier that you wait for me for a while. Yanfeng Shilang shook his head slightly. Besides, I don't know what to say to that king either. Yanfeng Shilang's voice was somewhat deep. He really doesn't know how to deal with this wise king version of Gilgamesh. Although in his past life, compared to the young version of Gilgamesh, Yanfeng Shiro preferred this later version of Gilgamesh. But human evaluations can change. During the years living with Yanfeng Shiro and Gilgamesh, Yanfeng Shiro has become accustomed to their various habits. For example, Yanfeng Qili's silence and joy. And Gilgamesh's arrogance and bad breath. Although he couldn't bear these things at first, now he has become accustomed to them. Or rather, he has also been assimilated. Don't be fooled by Yanfeng Shilang's politeness towards everyone at this moment, but if he is really impatient, he insists on allowing the other party to enjoy what is called extreme bad breath and ultimate enjoyment. If encountering interesting things, he will also transform into a master archer with a joyful attitude inside. In short, he was deeply influenced by Yanfeng Qili and Gilgamesh. So he didn't know how to get along with this wise king version of Gilgamesh. Moreover, the other party recognized him as their son without even saying a few words to him. He said that Feng Shilang is not someone who casually recognizes his father. He is not Lu Bu. He would admit that Feng Qili and Gilgamesh were fathers because they indeed saved Yanfeng Shiro's life and raised him. Nurturing kindness surpasses heaven. So Yanfeng Shiro would identify with that identity. But this guy doesn't have this kind of kindness towards him. Don't think they are all the same person and can easily recognize him as their son. He said that Feng Shilang is not so casual. So, what exactly are you looking for me for? Putting down the wine glass in her hand, Merlin still maintained a smiling expression and asked Yanfeng Shilang about it. After coming out of the divine tower, the two of them found the restaurant that had just opened and sat down here. Thanks to the blessing of the wise king's version of Gilgamesh, who had 1,000 miles of vision, he brought many useful systems and constructions from later generations and built this battle city. So Yanfeng Shilang and Mei Lin can enjoy such convenience. Don't pretend to be silly, you should have already known. Besides those magic costumes, do I have any other options when I came to you? Yanfeng Shilang gave Mei Lin a displeased glance. This guy always likes to play dumb. He, I'm not that smart. After Merlin smiled foolishly and humbled herself, her face became serious. So are you really planning to go to another world? You guessed everything, didn't you? Yanfeng Shilang could not help but complain about it. Yanfeng Shiro did not conceal his ability to travel through the world. After all, both Merlin and Gilgamesh are big shots with 1,000 miles eye. This kind of thing cannot be concealed from the other party. Moreover, even the arrival of Yanfeng Shilang seemed to be within their expectations. So Yanfeng Shilang naturally revealed his abilities. As for why are you planning to go to a different world at this time? Without him, his strength is just weak. According to Yanfeng Shilang's observations during this period, this disaster is likely to be the culprit leading to the death of Bai Yuqian. Yanfeng Shilang is well aware of Bai Yuqian's strength. Bai Yuqian is much stronger than him. It can be said that Feng Shilang did not want her to die. So he needs strength. Moreover, in this unique point, there is a crisis that is capable of annihilating the world. Although the people of Chaldea will come to save the world in the future, Yanfeng Shilang does not want himself to be just an insignificant person. He wants to truly join this great war. And indeed do something. So, he needs strength. In this world, there is no way for him to rapidly improve to achieve this goal in a short period of time. So Yanfeng Shilang could only turn his gaze towards his golden finger. Travel through a different world. Not long ago, Yanfeng Shilang, who was constantly collecting residual energy sources from Warcraft on the North Wall, had already gathered all the energy to travel to another world. But he did not go immediately. Zhaoshuyuan.com compared to the parallel world of the moon-type world, it is more mysterious there. No one knows what Yanfeng Shilang will encounter there. So he must be prepared. So, he told Merlin his purpose through a letter and entrusted him to prepare a batch of useful magic costumes for himself. Merlin agreed to his request. Speaking of which, Feng Shiro's trip is for these magic costumes. Unexpectedly, a commander suddenly appeared in Warcraft, and the time he currently has is very short. He must learn and return before the Warcraft attacks. So he is very anxious now. Feeling the urgent and serious gaze of Yanfeng Shilang, Merlin finally sighed. I knew it would be like this. Merlin shook her head and took out a suitcase from the void. All the things you need are here. In addition to the magic gift you entrusted, there are also many treasures given by King Gilgamesh stored inside. If used properly, you should not be in any danger. Listening to Merlin's instructions, Yanfeng Shilang opened his suitcase. All kinds of light instantly reflected on his face. Originally, this suitcase was a space item with a capacity far exceeding that of a normal suitcase. Inside, in addition to various magic costumes and treasures, there are also many extremely precious gemstones and various materials. If these things were placed in later generations, each one would be a priceless existence. In this era, only Gilgamesh can possess these things. It's truly my father, he really hurts me. Closing the suitcase, Yanfeng Shiro sighed with satisfaction on his face. This is not an adoptive father, this is a biological father. Chapter 6. Exploration of the Other World and Magic Costume. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Just a moment of darkness before my eyes, the world has already undergone a transformation. By activating the system panel's ability to shuttle through different worlds, Yanfeng Shiro had already left Uruk, and even left the moon world. He came to an unknown world. When Yanfeng Shiro opened his eyes again, what caught his eye was a simple and unadorned wall. With a strong sense of vigilance, he calmly took into account the situation around him, and then slowly breathed a sigh of relief. This is a deserted dark alley. This means that Feng Shilang does not need to worry about whether his sudden appearance will attract the attention of those around him. After all, this is a different world. No one knows exactly where he will appear in the other world. In the beginning, the reason why Yanfeng Shilang chose parallel world travel instead of cross-world travel for the first time was not only about energy, but also about the unknownness of the cross-world. Considering that Yanfeng Shiro was reincarnated into the type moon world, it is highly likely that a world based on other works of Yanfeng Shiro's previous life also exists. But there are too many literary works in Yanfeng Shilang's past life, and compared to the actual number that Yanfeng Shilang knows, he is only a drop in the ocean. So, there is too much uncontrollability in the other world. And this time, because he was prepared in advance for the possible problems in the other world, Yanfeng Shiro quickly entered a state and began to prepare to integrate into this world. Firstly, Yanfeng Shiro restrained his breath and reduced his sense of presence. This technique was learned by Yanfeng Shiro from his adoptive father Yanfeng Qili, and when he first arrived, Yanfeng Shiro did not want to attract the attention of others. And because one side of this dark alley is connected to the street, Yanfeng Shilang can see the pedestrians passing by on the street. From the clothing of passers-by just now, it seems that the world's attire is still very casual, as if there is anything to wear. So it seems that I don't need to change clothes anymore. After confirming this intelligence, Yanfeng Shilang quietly arrived near the street. Listening to various sounds coming from outside, Yanfeng Shilang's expression quickly became very helpless. Sure enough, I can't understand anything. Language is often the most pressing and embarrassing issue that people who travel through the world need to face. Unfortunately, Yanfeng Shilang's golden fingers are useless and have no other functions besides traversal, let alone automatic translation. Fortunately, I was prepared early on. Thinking of this, Yanfeng Shiro proudly raised the corner of his mouth. The reason why he asked Merlin to help him make the magic costume was because he was worried about this situation. In response to the problems he may encounter in a different world, Yanfeng Shiro ordered 3 magic costumes from Merlin, one of which was a windbreaker worn by Yanfeng Shiro and the other was a bracelet he wore on his wrist. There is also a prop similar to headphones, which Yanfeng Shiro named language communication. As long as it is worn on the ear, it can read the surface emotions of the other person and translate their language. And as long as it collects enough language information, it can thoroughly analyze the current language and quickly assist the holder in completing language learning. So, what I need to do first is collect language information. Do whatever comes to mind. Wearing his earphones, he picked up his suitcase that came with him to this world. Yanfeng Shiro quickly walked out of this dark alley and integrated into the pedestrians on the street. The noisy and chaotic voices enveloped Yanfeng Shiro. This is exactly the environment that Yanfeng Shilang needs. The collection of language information is based on the conversations taking place on the street, so what Yanfeng Shiro needs to do at this time is just take a walk on the street. During the walk, Yanfeng Shiro was also examining the surrounding environment. He is looking for a scene that can awaken his memory. He really hopes this is a world he is familiar with. Looking at the situation around here, it's more like the style of the Western fantasy world than the medieval Europe. After all, this place is so clean. And surprisingly, there are guys with some strength everywhere around here. Observing the surroundings discreetly and feeling the slightly trembling cross on his wrist, Yanfeng Shilang's vigilance was gradually increasing in his heart. On a silver-white bracelet at his wrist, a cross resembling a trident was trembling slightly. This prop is also Merlin's work. It is called Danger Detection by Yanfeng Shiro. It will vibrate when there is danger or dangerous props around Yanfeng Shilang, and the more dangerous the surroundings are, the more intense the vibration of this cross will be. The current level of trembling indicates that Yanfeng Shilang is surrounded by guys with abilities beyond ordinary people. These people have almost no traces of exercise on their bodies, so is it something else that affects the judgment of the bracelet? Considering this is a different world, can we say it's a magical world? Yanfeng Shilang quickly made a speculation. Since the strength of these people is not obtained through physical exercise, it should be obtained through meditation or innate. And, danger detection, this prop is the most sensitive to the perception of magic. After all, in the world of the moon, the mainstream power is magic, which is also the main force that Yanfeng Shiro needs to guard against. It seems that we need to act low-key in this world. Yanfeng Shilang speculates that in such an environment, the number of strong individuals may not be small. But that's exactly what I mean. The corners of Yanfeng Shilang's mouth slightly raised. His purpose in coming to the other world is precisely to pursue power. The more powerful a person is, the more channels they have for gaining power. For Yanfeng Shiro, this is really the best. After wandering aimlessly on the street for a while, Yanfeng Shiro's footsteps gradually slowed down. After continuous collection, the prop, language mastery, has now completed the collection and organization of the local language, and is now assisting Yanfeng Shiro in learning the language of this world. Zhaozuiyuan.com knowledge is constantly being infused into Yanfeng Shiro's mind through language proficiency. TSK, this feeling is really unbearable. Put his hand on his head, and the Yanfeng Shilang complained bitterly. However, I am no longer mute. After casually saying a few words in the language of this world, Yanfeng Shiro nodded in satisfaction. Although it's still a bit rough, it's already at a level where communication can be normal. As for the parts that are not smooth, it should be enough to deny that you are from a foreign country. So, Yanfeng Shilang, who had achieved his goal, began to stroll on the street again. But this time, his goal became to find suitable chat partners and obtain intelligence about the world. Suddenly, Yanfeng Shiro stopped and felt a slight increase in the tremor of his wrist bracelet compared to before. Curious, Yanfeng Shilang looked towards the direction indicated by the cross on the bracelet, only to find that it was a special shop. Is this a store that sells items similar to magic costumes? Although he still doesn't know the words of this world, Yanfeng Shiro judged the business of this store through the presence of magic on the props inside. So, becoming increasingly curious, he walked in. Then I saw a blonde girl with a whip and keychain hanging from her waist asking the store manager if there was any useful magic. Looking at this scene, memories of Yanfeng Shiro quickly surged into his mind. So it's this world. Yanfeng Shilang smiled and murmured to himself. The Tale of a Fairy. Chapter 7. The Tale of Fairies. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Tale of a Fairy. This is a passionate anime that Yanfeng Shiro watched a long time ago in his past life. The story mainly tells the story of what happens in a magical guild called Fairy Tale on a continent full of magic. In this world, magic can be said to exist everywhere. No wonder when Yanfeng Shilang strolls on the street, that danger detection on his wrist keeps trembling. People holding magical items are probably everywhere in this world. Although the vast majority of these magical props are not dangerous. For example, at this moment, what the store manager in front of Yanfeng Shiro, who was introducing magic props to the blonde girl, introduced was a magic prop that changed the color of the clothes according to the owner's mood. For Yanfeng Shiro, this prop is of no use. But that is currently the best-selling product in this store. Unlike other worlds where magic is only controlled by a few people, the magic of this world has already penetrated into people's lives. This is a truly magical society. Is it the tale of a fairy? There are many strong people in this world. After determining the world he had come to, Yanfeng Shiro quickly began to recall information about this world. Unfortunately, it has been over 20 years since Yanfeng Shiro watched that anime in his previous life. The memories of the past have long been blurred. At this moment, what he can recall in a short period of time are those memorable characters and famous scenes. But even so, Yanfeng Shiro has already confirmed his next action. That's to add the fairy tale. Even in this magical society, there are very few who are willing to become wizards. And the so-called wizards are people who rely on magic to live. And the place where the wizards gather is the guild. The guild receives commissions from various sectors of society and publishes them to members of its own guild in exchange for rewards. Only by joining a guild can wizards have a stable source of missions and stable rewards. But the commission of the entire society is limited, and when publishing the commission, the principal will naturally consider the reputation of the guild. Therefore, the more famous the guild, the more commissions it can receive and the higher the quality. Members in the guild can also continuously receive tasks. However, guilds with poor reputation or even no one's knowledge receive commissions that simply cannot sustain themselves. So, members in every guild are partners with each other. At this time, the most famous guild in the kingdom where Yanfeng Shiro is located is the Fairy Tale. That is also the guild where the protagonists in anime related to Yanfeng Shiro's past life and this world stayed. After determining the information of this world and recalling some past intelligence, Yanfeng Shiro already had a rough plan in his heart. Although he is not good at planning, he can make friends. And what he needs to do at this moment is to make friends with the female protagonist of the anime in his mind, the star spirit wizard Lucy. Welcome. Seeing Yanfeng Shiro walking in, the shop owner who was bargaining with the blonde girl Lucy warmly welcomed him. Seeing this, Lucy, who was about to use some despicable means, quickly restrained her expression and put on the appearance of a passerby. Originally, Lucy had already found the prop she wanted. But there was a dispute with the store owner over the price, and the two kept bargaining. But the owner of this shop refused to let go. Even 1J refused to let it go. This really makes Lucy very angry. Amidst the welcome from the shop owner, Yanfeng Shiro walked straight to the counter and placed the long sword he had taken from behind on the counter. Please estimate the price. Oh, it turns out to be a seller. Seeing this posture, the shop owner's face was fooled and even showed a smile. Since the other party is coming to the magic prop store to sell things, naturally they will only sell magic props. And since it's a sword, it must be a combat-type magical prop. Unlike the lifestyle magic props in his store, combat magic props are more excellent in both price and circulation. If this business is done well, he can at least make a big profit. So, the shop owner immediately picked up the sword that Yanfeng Shiro had placed on the counter and carefully looked at it. As for Weigong Shilang, he stood in front of the counter silently watching this scene. This sword was worn by Yanfeng Shilang on the front line of Uruk, but it is not a masterpiece. This is just a weapon he casually picked up among the weapons he sent from behind, but it was just some magical treatment from him. So compared to other swords, this sword is sharper. As for why sell this sword? Besides needing to exchange money, what is more important is to strive for opportunities. Strive for a legitimate opportunity to talk to the female protagonist around you. Are you a star spirit wizard? Looking at the silver key in the girl's hand, Yanfeng Shilang asked curiously. Ah. Yes, I am indeed a star spirit magician. Are you also a magician? Suddenly hearing Yanfeng Shiro's inquiry, Lucy was surprised at first, but after hearing the other person's question clearly, she immediately responded and even countered. That's right, my name is Yanfeng Shilang, and I am also a wizard. Sure enough. My name is Lucy, and I didn't expect to encounter other wizards here as well. Although there are many people in this world who know magic, there are very few who are willing to become wizards. After all, the work of a wizard is notoriously dangerous. Therefore, Lucy was still very happy to meet other wizards during her trip. Surprisingly, it only sold 100,000J. I think Shirlang's sword should be more expensive. You shouldn't have agreed so readily. You just gave that boss a cheap price for nothing. It's okay, even if it's a bit more expensive, it won't be much, let alone I really need money now. After coming out of the store together, Lucy complained discontentedly about the shop owner. After chatting in the store, Yanfeng Shilang and Lucy have also become familiar with each other by now. However, the reason why Lucy is so dissatisfied is not because her relationship with Yanfeng Shiro has become so good. But instead, she kept bargaining with the shop owner to buy the 20,000J little Canis star spirit key, but the other party refused even to accept it. In the end, Lucy bought the key to Canis at full price. Lucy is the star spirit wizard, and the Star Spirit Wizard is the wizard who signs a contract with the Star Spirit in the Star Spirit realm using the Star Spirit's key to summon the other party to fight. In short, it is a summoner. And the Star Spirit Key is the medium of summoning. So the importance of the Star Spirit Key to Star Spirit Demon Masters is beyond doubt. A Star Spirit Wizard without a Star Spirit Key can be said to have no threat at all. Well, if you really need money, there's really no way. After all, this store is the only magic store in this city. Upon hearing Yanfeng Shiro's words, Lucy couldn't help but think of herself. She herself is also poor now. If it were in the past, she wouldn't have spent so much time talking about something worth 20,000 J, and even had the idea of using a beauty trick. Indeed, money may not be a big deal, but having it is absolutely unacceptable. Yanfeng Shi couldn't help but sigh. Lucy nodded in agreement. But these embarrassments are just temporary. When I join the fairy's tale, everything will be okay. As he spoke, Yanfeng Shiro's face showed a happy smile. The fairy tale. Shiro, are you also planning to join the fairy tale? Upon hearing Yanfeng Shiro's words, Lucy exclaimed in surprise. After all, her goal is also the tale of a fairy. Chapter 8. Walking Together with True and False Fire Dragons. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Tale of a Fairy. As the most famous wizard guild today, it is also Lucy's destination. Of course, I must add the fairy's tale. Yanfeng Shilang said decisively. This is not a lie spoken by Yanfeng Shiro to get close to Lucy. But rather his true thoughts. As time passed, memories of the fairy tale were slowly flooding his mind, and his love for the fairy tale was quickly being rediscovered. He really wants to join the fairy's tale. Moreover, this is not contradictory to his original intention of seeking strength. Feeling the firmness in Yanfeng Shilang's tone, Lucy was also infected. Me too. In that case, why don't we travel together? Lucy excitedly invited Yanfeng Shilang. If you don't mind, I have no problem at all. Yanfeng Shiro agreed. He naturally wouldn't refuse. After all, he came with this goal in mind from the beginning. Accompanied by Lucy, and then met the male protagonist, Fire Dragon, Naz together, and ultimately joined the fairy tale with her. This is the only way that Yanfeng Shilang can think of now to add a fairy tale. Besides being invited by guild members, it may be difficult to join the fairy tale Yanfeng Shilang through other means. Besides, he doesn't even know the magic of this world right now. The magic that can be used to pass the level is just the magic of the moon world. He simply cannot withstand the test like this. So what was in front of him was actually only this path. Although he didn't expect things to develop so smoothly beforehand. That's settled then. Lucy clenched her fist and said with satisfaction. She actually doesn't have much confidence to join the fairy tale. After all, the more powerful the guild, the more people it wants to join, which means the corresponding test will be more difficult. So Lucy thought that if she could have companions with her, her success rate in joining the fairy tale might also be higher. Just as Lucy and Yanfeng Shiro formed a team, preparing to go to the fairy tale together, several girls running quickly caught Lucy's attention. And what attracted Lucy was the constantly exclaiming, "Fire Dragon Lord," in their mouths. Fire Dragon Lord. Is it the fire dragon in the fairy's tale? Has he also come to this city? As a fan of fairy tale, Lucy's eyes immediately turned towards the direction of several young girls running after hearing the shout of, "Fire Dragon Lord." Shilang, let's go. This is a good opportunity to join the fairy tale. After speaking, Lucy followed the footsteps of the young girls ahead with Yanfeng Shilang. Quickly, Lucy and Yanfeng Shilang arrived at the place where the Fire Dragon Lord was located, which was already surrounded by 3 layers of women inside and 3 layers outside. Various screams were incessant. As soon as he arrived here, Yanfeng Shiro noticed something unusual, which was a spiritual ability. For magicians like Yanfeng Shilang, who have limited magical skills, the ability of the spiritual system is his most guarded ability. And the windbreaker prop on his body also has an effect on this ability. Magic gift clothes, combat magic clothes. This is a high-quality item with physical defense, magical resistance, strong resistance to curses and mental control, short flight and even automatic repair, automatic cleaning, and other effects. Common abilities include physical defense, magical resistance, automatic repair, and automatic cleaning. Curse and mental control, as well as strong resistance and brief flight, are the main goals of Yanfeng Shilang. The former is naturally designed to cope with the current situation. The latter is to guard against terrain killing. In short, Yanfeng Shiro is not afraid of any direct confrontation, and he is more concerned about many crises from other aspects. That's why he asked Merlin to customize these 3 magic costumes. After realizing the sinister intentions of the fake dragon ahead, Yanfeng Shilang did not immediately remind Lucy. He is confident in protecting the safety of the other party. And not reminding her is to get to know the real dragon. After all, everything is still on the plot track in his memory, and what he needs to do is to maintain this track and move forward according to the original trajectory. Soon, the real protagonist, also known as the real fire dragon, burst into this place with a flying cat, shouting to find the fire dragon. Then he was beaten up by the girls around him. It was precisely because of the true fire dragon Naz's intrusion that Lucy noticed something unusual about herself. Later, after the fake dragon left, she invited Naz and his cat to dinner, repaying him for helping her escape from the enchanting magic. It's really interesting. That boy named Naz actually went to the city to search for dragons. After dinner, sitting on the bench in the park, Yanfeng Shiro smiled and discussed with Lucy about the protagonist he remembered. Unlike the title Fire Dragon, the boy Naz is looking for a real dragon. Yeah. At this moment, Lucy had a forced smile on her face. She is still immersed in the scene just now. Just as they parted ways with Sakura-haired boy Naz and his talking cat, the other person actually thanked them all over the restaurant. This made her feel particularly embarrassed. By the way, just now it was clear that I wanted to thank them, but you asked Shilang to pay. This is not right, I think so. I'll just give you the money back. Thinking of this, Lucy immediately pulled out her own wallet. No need. Yanfeng Shiro directly held Lucy's hand. Although we have just become friends, I did not take any action after you were enchanted by the other party's charm. This is my fault, so it is also appropriate for me to treat you. This can also be considered a small compensation in Yanfeng Shilang's heart. Well, then I accept your apology. Lucy responded with a smile. Previously, Lucy was willing to team up with Yanfeng Shilang because they were also considered like-minded and sought help from Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com, but Lucy did not fully trust Yanfeng Shilang either. After all, as a girl traveling alone, vigilance is essential. But after experiencing this incident, she also gained more trust in Yanfeng Shilang. It seems that the other party is a very nice person. Lucy was secretly thinking in her heart. Great, then let's continue moving towards the fairy's tale. Lucy, who had made good friends and was in a good mood, raised her fist high and shouted out her goal loudly. Oh, so you're planning to go to the fairy's tale? Suddenly, an unexpected sound came from the surrounding grass, and it was the fake fire dragon who had used enchanting magic before. Upon seeing this, Yanfeng, a scholar, even stood in front of Lucy. Since he said that before, he naturally has to keep his promise now. What do you want to do? Yanfeng Shiro earnestly inquired. Looking at Yanfeng Shilang with a wary face, but not feeling any magic from him, the fake fire dragon smiled slightly and put on a gentle expression. I just want to invite 2 of you to my boat for a party. Ha, why did I go to a party with you, such a despicable guy? How could I use enchanting magic? Do you know that? The weakness of that kind of magic is that it cannot be recognized, otherwise it cannot produce effects. So that kind of vulgar magic is now ineffective for us who know its effects, vulgar guy. Faced with this guy using enchanting magic, Lucy scolded loudly in disgust. She doesn't want to get to know such a vulgar guy at all. I don't want to have too much communication with him. Chapter 9. Showcasing your skills in the night. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Me. Inferior. This fake dragon does not consider himself vulgar. That's just social etiquette. I just want to enjoy the atmosphere of being a celebrity at the party, he said confidently. Then you're really a fool. Upon hearing the other person's explanation, Lucy's eyes became increasingly contemptuous. She no longer wants to listen to the other party's explanation and is preparing to leave here. But just as she turned around and planned to invite Yanfeng Shilang to leave here, the fake fire dragon chuckled and said, "Didn't you want to join the fairy's tail? So, you should have heard of the fire dragon with the fairy's tail." Lucy stopped in her tracks. She turned around abruptly and asked excitedly, "Are you really the wizard of the fairy tale?" "That's right, if you want to join the fairy tale, I can say hello to the president." "Really?" Lucy opened her eyes wide, and her smile couldn't be concealed. She didn't expect to encounter the opportunity to join the fairy tale here. Although somewhat suspicious, she is willing to give it a try. "Of course, but as an exchange, I hope you can keep it a secret and come to the party tonight." Seeing that things were progressing smoothly, the fake dragon's face was also filled with a smile. "Of course, but I also have companions who want to join the fairy tale." Although she was overwhelmed by the sudden good news, Lucy did not forget Yanfeng Shilang, her companion. "Is he okay? You can come together tonight." The false dragon agreed directly to Lucy's request, as there were variables that prevented the smooth development of things. "That's really great." Lucy jumped up with excitement. "Since that's the case, let's meet tonight." After speaking, the fake dragon activated its magic and flew towards the sky. "Lucy, I don't think this matter is that simple." After the fake dragon left, Yanfeng Shilang withdrew his actions and offered his own opinions to Lucy. "Actually, I also have this feeling." Awakened from the surprise, Lucy's rationality returned to the high ground of intelligence. "But what if this is true? Anyway, let's give it a try. If there is really a problem, as wizards, we can completely escape." As she spoke, she also picked up the star spirit key hanging from her waist and shook it in front of Yanfeng Shilang. In that string of star spirit keys, 3 golden star spirit keys showcase her strength as a star spirit wizard. For star spirit mages, the strength of the contracted star spirit represents their strength. Among the star spirits, the strongest one is the golden 12-palace star spirit, which can only be contracted by the golden star spirit key. And there are only 12 golden star spirit keys in the world. Lucy has as many as 3 in her hand. This is also her confidence in daring to travel alone. Besides, it's still the sea there. Looking at the ships floating on the sea in the distance, Lucy couldn't help but show a confident expression. For Lucy, her strongest ace at this time is the Aquarius spirit playing in water, and the ocean is in a sense her home field. "Okay, since you're so confident, then let's listen to you." Yanfeng Shilang nodded slightly in agreement. His current identity setting is that he only knows some ordinary magic, and he just left his hometown as a wandering wizard after his parents died. So theoretically, his adventure experience is not as good as Lucy's. Therefore, I will follow Lucy's instructions in my actions. And such an identity can also lay the groundwork for him to seek magical knowledge from others after joining the tale of a fairy. That's good, everything is going smoothly, and now it's up to the evening. Looking out at the distant ocean, Yanfeng Shilang was secretly pondering in his heart. The sea at night was incredibly pitch black and silent. But at this moment, the big ship under Yanfeng Shi's feet was brightly lit and incredibly lively. Standing at the edge of the deck, Yanfeng Shilang leaned on the fence alone, gazing at the sea. Unlike when he had just traveled and everything happened in a hurry, Yanfeng Shilang had no time to think and could only move forward along the vague memories in his mind. At this moment, after an afternoon of rest and reflection, Yanfeng Shilang reorganized his thoughts and plans. At this time, Yanfeng Shilang and Lucy were not together. With little hope in mind, Lucy changed into a formal dress to attend this party. Standing with her, Yanfeng Shiro, still dressed in his original attire, was like a bodyguard. As a result, Lucy, who exuded an elegant and luxurious demeanor, quickly received invitations from other girls participating in the party and integrated into it. As for Feng Shilang, he restrained his breath alone and stood here silently passing the time. Bang! The sound of a heavy object landing suddenly rang out, and then similar sounds kept coming to Yanfeng Shiro's ears, but Yanfeng Shiro was not surprised at all. Since we knew in advance that the owner of this search ship was not a good person, it is possible for anything to happen. Yanfeng Shiro was mentally prepared for this. Oh, are there any fish that missed the net? The fish that missed the net. Are you talking about me? Turning around, he looked at the dozen or so burly men standing behind him, and the corners of Yanfeng Shiro's mouth slightly raised. I don't know when it started, but under the influence of Yanfeng's Qili, Yanfeng Shilang would also smile when others were unlucky. Especially now, as he was about to personally deliver bad luck to the other person, his smile on the face was already a bit uncontrollable. Strengthen. Activate enhanced magic. With the flow of magic, Yanfeng Shiro, whose physical abilities were strengthened, quickly rushed into the crowd and began a unique physical magic teaching. The martial arts inheritance of Yanfeng Shilang comes from Yanfeng Qili. The prototype of this martial art is the 8 Extremes Fist, which is also a martial art inherited by Yanfeng Qili from her own father. But with his personal experience, this martial arts gradually sublimated into the form of Qili Lu's body destruction technique. As for Feng Shilang, it is precisely this technology that he inherited. Yanfeng Shilang, who rushed into the crowd, started his hunting like a wolf in a flock of sheep. Rush at a speed that ordinary people cannot keep up with and engage in close combat in front of the leading strong man. His every strike is crucial to the human body and can instantly eliminate the threat of the attacking person. And because Yanfeng Shilang was too close to them, they dared not use magic at all, fearing that it would affect themselves if they injured their teammates. Moreover, Yanfeng Shilang's speed is really too fast. They can't even aim. So in the blink of an eye, nearly half of these dozen people had already fallen. They lay on the ground howling loudly, but couldn't stand up anymore. Just as Yanfeng Shilang was preparing to deal with all the enemies present in the same way, a familiar voice suddenly sounded. Stop it. The one who came was the fake dragon. And behind him, Lucy, who was bound, was still being pressed down. Chapter 10. Planning and Changes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The unexpected sound stopped Yanfeng Shiro's movements. Taking into account all the situation on the field, Yanfeng Shiro slowly restrained his movements and gradually retreated, distancing himself from the people around him. After a recent struggle, Yanfeng Shiro has roughly grasped the basic qualities of these people. He could only sigh that they were truly people from the magical world. Each of these bandits had excellent physical fitness, and some of them even had better physical fitness than the pre-strengthened Yanfeng Shilang. Even these people have magic. Although they are just small fry, according to Lucy, the city they stayed in before, even though the fishing industry was far more developed than magic, the people who held magic accounted for about 10% of the entire city. But even in such an environment, in Lucy's eyes, it is still a place where magic is rare. From this, it can be seen how exaggerated the overall popularity of magic in this world is. So, as bandits, these strong men each possess magic and power. It's just that their magic is not fully charged, and it's not certain if magic has destructive power. After all, this is a magical society. Compared to magic related to combat, there are more magic related to daily life. So, without knowing if these people have combat magic in their hands, Yanfeng Shilang needs to constantly be on guard against them and be wary of car accidents. If there are really guys among these people who possess combat magic, a proper distance would be enough for Yanfeng Shilang to react. Be careful, these guys are all remnants of abusing magic. They are also engaged in human trafficking business and are the most shameless wizards. After seeing Yanfeng Shiro, Lucy immediately shouted loudly. Obviously, she was particularly angry at the moment when her hopes were shattered and humiliated. So much so that she disregarded whether she would provoke these criminals and put her life at risk. She is such a sensitive person. Stop talking nonsense and be careful of your life. Lucy's words indeed angered the other party. After threatening Lucy, the fake fire dragon, as the leader of the bandits, turned his gaze to Yanfeng Shilang. In his eyes, there was a wary expression. Little ghost, I underestimated you. I thought you were just a pretentious novice wizard, but I didn't expect you to be this type of wizard. It was my miscalculation. But now, your companion is in my hands, and I think you should obediently surrender. Otherwise, I can't guarantee the safety of this little girl. The fake dragon cautiously threatened Yanfeng Shilang. Do you want to be captured without restraint? Yanfeng Shilang chuckled lightly and muttered to himself. But I think you should be the one who should give in, right? What does it mean? Upon hearing Yanfeng Shiro's words, the fake fire dragon's face was filled with confusion. He really didn't understand where the other party's confidence was, and dared to say such a thing. But with his rich experience, he still looked around cautiously, worried that the other party and his accomplices might be hiding and preparing to launch a surprise attack on himself. Actually, he was very right in his thinking. Yanfeng Shilang and Lucy's accomplices did indeed come, although they had not made an agreement beforehand. The attack came from the sky. A figure fell between the fake dragon and Lucy, separating them. Hobby, take Lucy away quickly. Shiro. Lucy. Why are you here? The cat Hobby, flying in the sky, asked in confusion. That's right, the one who came was the real fire dragon Naz, and the flying cat Habby who followed him. We'll talk about that later. I understand. Hobbit, who understood how chaotic the scene was, flew away from here with Lucy. Don't try to escape. Seeing Hobby and Lucy quickly fly away from the ship, the fake dragon quickly used its flame magic and shot a pillar of fire directly at Lucy. But Hobby is also an old driver. Under its evasion, the fake dragon's attack did not hit a single shot. So, the fake dragon became even more anxious. Don't let that woman run away. If she were to sue us to the Senate, we would all be ruined. Upon hearing the boss's warning, his men grabbed guns and prepared to shoot Lucy and Hobby into the air. That's right, in this magical world, there is also the existence of firearms. But just then, a light laugh suddenly sounded in their ears. Have you forgotten me? A cold light swiftly flashed by. The gun ready to shoot at Lucy was instantly cut off by the waist. Yanfeng Shilang, who was originally standing in the distance, had already arrived in front of them. And in his hand, a dagger shining with magical radiance was releasing a little chill. This dagger picked up by Yanfeng Shilang casually from the ground, under his magic enhancement, displayed a charm like a divine weapon. Yo, are you okay? Naz. Standing behind Nazi, who had never stood up since landing and had been vomiting in place, Yanfeng Shiro smiled and asked. No, it won't work. Naz's response was very forced. If you can't do it, then leave it to me. Please be careful to dodge and don't get hurt. Naz, the Dragon Destroyer, is the protagonist of this world in the memory of Yanfeng Shiro. He possesses the magic to transform his physique into that of a dragon, and his strength is extremely powerful. However, even strong individuals like him have their own weaknesses. That means it can cause dizziness in transportation. For example, the ship under their feet at this moment. Naz is currently in a state of seasickness. So, before leaving this ship, Naz will not be able to serve as combat power. So at this moment, only Yanfeng Shilang can fight. But even so, Yanfeng Shilang still had no fear at all, and his face still wore a smile. Because everything now is within his plan. Naz and Habi came here because they heard someone in the city say that the fire dragon with the fairy tail had come here and held a party on the boat. As a member of the fairy tail, and even the fire dragon himself, Naz naturally knew that this was a lie. He has a strong sense of belonging to the guild and will not allow anyone to tarnish the name of the fairy tale. So he will definitely come. In the memory of Yanfeng Shiro, the story developed in this way. But just in case, Yanfeng Shiro still made some arrangements. For example, by hinting at someone intentionally speaking these words around Naz. Zhaoshuyuan.com, although I don't really enjoy using cunning tactics, that's all I can do to join the fairy's tale. But now comes the exciting moment of battle. After giving a few instructions to Naz, Yanfeng Shilang refocused his gaze on the fake fire dragon across from him, while the remaining light flashed past the surrounding minions. The corner of his mouth slightly raised, and the figure of Yanfeng Shilang disappeared into place in an instant. The flames released by the fake dragon quickly appeared among several small minions. In just a moment, these little minions had lost their resistance and lay on the ground, constantly wailing. I didn't spend more energy paying attention to these people. After quickly resolving the surrounding interference factors, Yanfeng Shilang looked again at the fake fire dragon that had just released magic and had not yet dropped its hand. Next is you. Yanfeng Shilang said softly. Humph, it's just that we won some small players, so we're getting too proud. Kid, I'll show you what true strength is. The hands were covered in flames, and the false dragon declared contemptuously. Really? I hope you can still be so arrogant later. The already surging fighting spirit quickly extinguished, and Yanfeng Shiro chuckled and glanced at the fake dragon before walking to the side and grabbing the railing to fix his figure. And his other hand grabbed Naz's scarf. Then he looked towards the scene behind the fake dragon. What does it mean? Although he didn't understand the other person's intention, the experienced fake dragon quickly looked back. And what caught his eye was a terrifying tsunami shot towards the ship.